cheap, light and deadly. This is touted as the future of modern warfare.
Holy moly!
It's the technology that allows a mounted machine gun, grenade launcher or cannon on top of a vehicle to lock onto a target while the shooter remains safely inside.
That's steel on target right there.
Every time.
These weapon systems are going into the hands of people we want them to go into the hands of.
And the weapons system is made in Canberra by Australian company Electro-Optic Systems.
This is a very, very successful Australian company. You're going to push that button in? Yeah. Okay, and then...
In January, then Defence Industry Minister Christopher Pyne opened their new production facility.
Our friends and allies around the world will get some use out of these.
The same month, the federal government launched an ambitious plan, the Defence Export Strategy, to spend $200 billion over a decade to become one of the world's top 10 defence exporters. Kelly Tranter is a New South Wales lawyer and human rights activist. She spent this year trying to get to the bottom of where Australia's weapons are going, but it's not been easy.
We don't have any specific detailed information about the equipment being sold and how it's being used.
Through a series of Freedom of Information or FOI requests, Tranter has been able to piece together clues. One of the recipients of Australian arms is the United Arab Emirates.
In relation to military licences granted for the export of military equipment and technology to the United Arab Emirates, we now know that there have been at least 37 permits granted from the start of January 2016 to the 16th of May of this year.
The heavily censored FOIs do not reveal EOS or in fact any Australian company names. Now there's another massive proposed export deal. In January, EOS announced it had landed a $410 million contract with an undisclosed overseas customer. Two people with knowledge of the deal told the ABC that the EOS weapons system is bound for the United Arab Emirates. 730 understands it will be manufactured in the US. And the Australian government supported the deal by providing refundable bonds worth $33 million. We asked EOS officials for an interview. They declined. In a statement, the company said it would not confirm or deny who its customers were. It also said it was not presently in receipt of an export licence that covered the UAE. Defence Minister Christopher Pyne also wouldn't say where the equipment was headed, but said that Australia always abides by its international legal obligations. The problem with this lack of transparency is that there is no public guarantee where any of Australia's weapons will end up. The UAE and Saudi Arabia are fighting a war against rebels in Yemen. EOS say they play no role in that conflict, but if they provide their products to the UAE, then there are concerns that eventually they could end up in Yemen. The 4-year war in Yemen has been a humanitarian catastrophe.
Millions of people have been displaced and tens of thousands of people have been killed through airstrikes and through indiscriminate shelling by all parties.
Melissa Park is a former WA Labor MP who co-authored a United Nations report on the war in Yemen released 2 months ago. The findings were disturbing.
Yemeni civilians are dying or being killed in very large numbers every day in this man-made conflict. It can and must be stopped. Providing weapons can only perpetuate the conflict and prolong the unbearable suffering of the Yemeni people.
So this is my souvenir from the Guard.
Right. Weapons aside, there's also another valuable commodity making its way from Australia to the UAE: people.
So this is what I got out of my time in the UAE with the Presidential Guard. I found myself redundant quite suddenly and I had a job offer the next day. Would you consider going to the UAE?
Peter Butson is a 30-year Australian defence veteran. A former intelligence officer, he retired in 2011 and was working as a consultant when he took a job setting up firing ranges for an elite unit of the UAE's armed forces.
I'm a non-gun toting, non-member of the UAE Defence Force contractor to an Australian firm doing specialist training facility design and range design in the UAE.
Peter Butson is one of dozens of Australians who've gone to the UAE to assist their troops. The ABC has searched social media site LinkedIn and found almost 100 military veterans and former federal police who are or were training UAE national security forces. Many come from Australia's Commandos and the Special Air Service Regiment, the SAS. Most of the Australians are training the country's most elite fighting force, the Presidential Guard. It was set up in 2011 by one of Australia's most decorated and experienced Special Forces commanders, retired Major General Mike Hindmarsh.
What we've just seen with the arrival of the last OBG patrol is the end of another chapter in Australia's proud military history.
Hindmarsh ran the SAS as well as Australia's Special Operations Headquarters and, in 2008, commanded Australia's part in the Afghan War. A year later, he quit the army and took a job in the Emirates where he led the team that created the Presidential Guard. This document, obtained under Freedom of Information by the ABC, shows then Chief of Army Lieutenant General Ken Gillespie supported Hindmarsh's decision to visit the UAE to explore job opportunities. Peter Butson says he briefed General Hindmarsh and met him many times during his stint in the UAE while working with the Presidential Guard.
He's very much in control. It was always the warm handshake and the wry smile. And that's leadership. And he exudes that.
There's now international scrutiny of the Presidential Guard and its commander in the war on Yemen.
Hindmarsh's role in the Yemen war is more about organizing than anything else. Operations falls within the Emirati sphere of decision-making. So Hindmarsh is basically a manager in this particular war.
Some people have even gone as far as to say they think he runs the UAE's war in Yemen.
Almost certainly not.
And elsewhere, there have been explosive allegations made in the US about a group of American mercenaries hired by an advisor to the Emirati Crown Prince to kill political enemies in Yemen. One of the members of the hit squad confirmed their mission to the ABC and the existence of this, a so-called target card. At the top right of the card, the insignia of the Presidential Guard.
Dylan Welsh reporting. And 7:30 tried to contact General Hindmarsh on multiple occasions for this story, but he did not respond.